Video panel. We're talking about all things video, VOD and live streaming and marketing and revenue and all things video. If you're here for a video conversation, then you're going to have a good time. If you're here to find some refuge from the VR AR panels, that's fine too. This is a safe space. Check your email. So my name is Karen. I do strategy and biz dev for digital entertainment companies. I help them figure out what to do with what they built. My background is a lot in music, so I came through the first round of the internet when everyone was trying to figure out what it meant and how to take an analog system onto digital, and was a part of a lot of that. So it's really helped me working with general entertainment companies from that point. So I just help them figure out what their opportunities are in the market, do the B2B deals or the B2C deals, and kind of get on their way. We're going to go down the line, and then I'm going to ask some questions. Do you want to start, Mike?
Sure. My name is Mike Lee. I'm the Director of Digital over at AEG Global Partnerships. AEG represents multiple global brands such as the Kings, the LA Galaxy. We also represent AEG Live, which owns Golden Voice, and we throw Coachella. We just threw Desert Trips for 2 weekends back-to-back this past weekend. So prior to that, I was at Live Nation, where I helped throw the live stream for Electric Daisy Carnival for the past 3 years.
My name's Andy Beach. I'm a technical evangelist at Microsoft. I specifically work with our media and entertainment partners, and I focus on the esports area, so working with guys like Twitch and ESL.
Hi, I'm Paula Batson. I head up PR and communications at YouNow, which is a live streaming social network that does over 150,000 broadcasts a day, and we are known for the fact that we have thousands of partners who actually earn a living on YouNow. And my background is I come from the music side, was at Bertelsmann during the Napster time, digital music, and on to other things where disruption is occurring. So thanks.
My name is Michael Palmer. I'm GM of video for Billboard and The Hollywood Reporter. Before that, I was with Defy Media. Before that, I was an entrepreneur, started a company called Clever, which we ended up selling to Defy Media.
Hi, I'm Rob Gable, founder and CEO of Tubular Labs. We're a bit like Nielsen for online video, except instead of tracking 1,500 shows, we track 3 billion online videos, finding 3 million every day. But prior to Tubular, I was with Netflix and Machinima.
Oh, that's a good lead-in. Because my name is Lena Lotzi, and I am the Senior Social Manager at Ignition Interactive, a 360 agency. Primarily, I work on Netflix properties, Paramount, Sony Pictures, primarily entertainment, looking for ways to break the platforms, as we say, on social, primarily with video.
Great. Rob, can you give us an idea, a little deeper idea of what you're tracking, specifically where the videos that you're tracking, any sort of trends you're seeing with them?
Yeah, so we track pretty much every public video to Vine, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch. Those are the primary platforms today. We're always looking to expand to more. And big trends that we're seeing, I think a lot of them are sort of obvious right now, but sponsored video. So now that we're reaching these big audiences and we've got these teams of folks dedicated to live streaming and to publishing video on Facebook and YouTube, how are we going to make money? Branded content integrations are a big one. And so we saw, for example, 2 billion views in September to sponsored videos, and that's just those disclosed to the FTC. So that continues to rise, and we think that's almost $1 billion industry already. It should be about 8 billion, so there's a bunch of things holding that back. Live streaming, obviously taking off. We see that has grown 12-fold in the last year to 6 billion views a month, to at least on the platforms we track. And I think 360 video, I know the theme here is virtual reality, still slow to get going, so the numbers are still really small.
Can you break that down at all by, when you get the data in, can you tell what the videos are about?
Yeah, we do, and we break it into a variety of genres, or everything about prom, etc. So gaming, music, and food tend to be still the big categories in humor and vlogging. Without going into big white paper, but recent trends. I think food obviously on Facebook is just absolutely massive. For whatever reason, the food porn continues to be a giant thing. We were looking. Tasty which is a BuzzFeed property, they average 27 million views of video in the first 30 days on Facebook.
That's amazing.
Every, day in, day out. And so
Per
that's
video,
still a
per
thing.
video.
People love it. And I think what's been really interesting with the rise of video is YouTube as the primary platform skewed very young and skewed very male, at least with their core audience. And so with the rise of Facebook, now grandparents, middle-aged people like me, moms are in on online video. Last thing, I guess we should be seeing a big push for brands to get into creating content, because a video on Twitter will get retweeted at 6 times the rate of an image. And on Facebook, a video will get you 3 or 4x the EdgeRank distribution to your followers than an image. But really not seeing that. I mean, there are a few brands that are like all in on video, but I would say the vast majority of traditional advertisers haven't really taken the plunge. Still bread and butter, creating TV ads and doing their brand marketing on TV.
I know branded content is a seriously growing industry too. Are you able to tell which ones are branded content versus just like, can you tell if it's a Red Bull?
Yeah, we do, and it's really interesting just to see the activity there. We're gonna be bringing out a new product actually right around then. So thanks, guys.
Oh, very cool.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go
about how you measure engagement, how you measure the value of a view from platform to platform? I know there's a lot of conversation around this, so I just wonder from your perspective, how are you looking at that?
It's really hard. I think we've wimped out, and we have really not tried to say that a view on Vine is worth more than a view on Facebook or Twitter. One way, I think, is by just looking at the commerce. So what is the going rate of a brand integration? If its currency is views on the different platforms, that's one measure. Time spent would be another measure, which we frankly don't have a lot of. And so that's a bad answer. I think we've tried to just understand, what works on the various platforms. Our measurement are likes and shares and tweets, but those are different on every single platform as well. So. Move the microphone closer. Oh, sorry about that. So I don't have the best answer there, but still working towards it.
Are you able to see the demographic between each platform and see, live stream versus regular branded content, which demos are consuming more? Like, do moms gravitate more towards branded content and kids gravitate more towards gaming?
Yeah, we have demographics for all YouTube videos. We don't, based on engagements, we don't have them at the video level on Facebook. We have them at the creator level on Facebook, but not the video level. So still working on that too. That will be coming, whether it's us or Nielsen. I think in the next year or two, you'll be able to get better insight to the demographics.
Are you tracking DVR watching too?
We are not.
Okay.
Not today.
Are you finding anything that's maybe phasing out? I know we talked about like live streaming is growing, food's off the hook right now. Is there anything that maybe is phasing out? Other than topics, even just maybe habits around viewing videos or?
Yeah, that's an interesting.
Or even like what platforms they're on, or some like is Pinterest a big deal? I know they added video a long time ago. Did that ever really pan out for video, or is it still pretty much?
So, we again, we work closely with all the platforms. We tend not to get into which platform's growing the biggest or the fastest. So on a platform-specific level, I don't know. I would say the thing that still is interesting is that we've seen a lot of success with media companies, especially on Facebook. So a year ago, they were doing 20 billion views a month, and now they're doing 105 billion views a month. I mean, that's massive growth, so they've really adopted that platform. But influencers are still, there's 5 views from influencer content for every 1 view of company-generated content. So take that, what that means is that the 4 or 5 million collective influencers, professional or amateur, collectively they do 5 times the viewership of every single business put together in the globe, right? All the world's largest global media companies, all the newspapers, all the TV, all those people, all the Crests, all the Samsungs, you put all those people together and they're 1/5 that of the long tail of creators. And I think that's fundamentally different because, for example, on TV, those creators don't have their own shows for the most part, maybe, except for Oprah. And so I think that creates a very different world, where if 10% of TV time moves to digital, especially on these social networks, and 80% of that is they're watching influencer content. That I think is profound. So that what I'm basically saying is that hasn't eroded. There hasn't been a big shift to professional content. Influencers still kind of own the day.
They do it themselves.
Yeah.
I think it's more authentic anyway when they do their own video without anything scripted from the brand. If they just are sent to a set that the brand made up, it's not as effective as them staying on their own channel and saying Doritos or whatever it is.
There's also just more of them. I mean, the platforms give you an equal shot, and there's 5 million creators that are constantly out there trying to make a living in video, and there's 50,000 companies. So it's like a zombie swarm.
Right, right. Are you tracking things like 360 video versus VR versus regular video?
Right now, we're just tracking 360 on Facebook.
Okay. And what are your thoughts around that so far?
It's growing. I noticed the number 1 video in 360 was MasterCard Brazil, 25 million views, which I thought was kind of interesting.
That's crazy. What was the video?
I didn't watch it. I just looked it up in Tubular. I don't really know. We can watch it together after the show. It's still pretty small, but it's emerging. It's growing.
For sure. Mike, I know 360 is a big part of what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, for us, us being kind of kind of giving these fans kind of that intimate relationship and intimate experience with these bands, giving them the freedom of choice with 360 VR. For us, the scale's not there yet. So for us, it's not really, last year with Coachella, we picked Vantage and we drove everyone through the Coachella app to view, all the 360 experiences. We provided a cardboard VR box in every single ticket box last year, but still that didn't really make the dent in terms of mass awareness. So for us, really, it's that kind of shiny new object for us, and to really give our fans and make our fans, our customers, feel like they have the choice in terms of what content they can see. Live stream, a few years ago, we shifted over from 1 video camera to 3 video cameras, and now we're offering 360 views as well. So for us, really, it's being able to give that freedom of choice and that ability for the users to kind of pick and choose their own experience. Because, as a video producer, you can only assume what the fans want to see, whether it's the person on the guitar, whether it's that, cute couple in the audience. VR really gives that choice and that experience to the fans and let them pick and choose. So.
Well, Coachella is interesting because the experience of Coachella is such a big part of it. It's not just the concerts. I mean, people who go and what they're wearing and who went with whom. Like that's such a huge news story as well as what Beyonce did on stage.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the analytics haven't caught up yet. I mean,
Okay.
we've asked to our production, like, can we actually track and measure which angle that they're actually viewing? Because we assume that when you have the choice, we actually assume that they're looking at the crowd, right? That they're not spending their entire time looking at either a DJ or a musician on screen. So for us, the next level of 360 for us is really tracking the analytics and say, what are people viewing at? And when we get those analytics, can we really use that to move and give us insights into what our regular flat production should be doing, what they should be shooting,
Right.
and how can that affect our live stream, our static 2D live stream, which drives in the sponsorships, drives in the numbers, and drives in that kind of revenue for us.
So how many 360 cameras do you have set up throughout Coachella, and where are they?
Last year, we set them out across 2 stages, but the idea is that, last year was really a bit of a test for us. Music rights haven't really caught up yet. And so the question is, is Live 360 actually live when it's getting buffered and encoded on the, in the cloud? And
But
then,
you're doing a live stream anyway.
Right.
So does it matter that it goes through the official live stream sponsored by T-Mobile versus 360 if the rights, I get it if the band didn't sign off.
Right.
And you have it on the 360, that's kind of cheating. But what if the band's already signed off on it? Do they really
So
care?
with the laws and the way the regulations are now, you actually can't, it doesn't cross over to both 360 and live stream. So for us, it was really kind of walking on eggshells last year, trying to figure out what the major record labels would say once we get live stream out there. Luckily, we think it was a huge success for us, something that we definitely want to replicate, and not just in the larger festival environments, but that's the great thing about 360 is that it lends itself to smaller venues, lends itself to smaller, more intimate kind of one-on-one studio sessions for us. So that's where we see 360 coming at, and the rights and legal issues is something that our lawyers are still looking at every day.
For sure.
But yeah, it's a tough kind of music's always been a tough cookie to crack for us in terms of legal rights. That's why sports is obviously more appealing doing VOD, but you know, when it comes to music, live is really where 360 is really pushing us.
Right, got it.
Yeah.
Andy, Olympics had a really fun summer with video.
Yeah.
It was interesting to me that I really feel like the press got the story on the Olympics wrong. Like the big story was television viewership was down and millennials didn't care. Oh, and then at the very bottom of the article, it also said, oh, by the way, the online video's off the hook. And I'm like, well, that's where the millennials are.
Right.
Everybody was watching what they wanted to watch as it happened. So can you help us sort of reconcile what that means?
Yeah, well, I brought along some of the interesting numbers that I found. All of the Olympics, actually since the Beijing Olympics have been, the infrastructure for it has been Microsoft-based. So NBC works with us and other partners to create that. Azure Media Services was the back end that was creating that content. There were 45 million hours of content produced by Azure Media Services, consumed by the NBC audiences, which was 5 times Sochi Olympics. So in just that 2-year period, it was up 5 times. And that was overall content. Live content specifically was 2.71 billion live minutes of streamed content, which was double all prior games. So
That
if
was
you-
2.7 billion or million?
Billion.
Billion with a B.
So if you take all the previous streamed Olympics, they total up to 1.48 billion. So those are some pretty good numbers.
So
Um,
that was
huge demand.
worldwide,
That was worldwide.
or was it
and-
just NBC for the US?
Sorry, and I take that back. This was the NBC's numbers because Microsoft strictly works with them. I mean, there are other parts of Microsoft that work with other countries, but
Right.
these are the NBC numbers. So you're talking
No,
about
those are
US.
geofenced, so I
US
can't watch
viewers.
NBC from France, for
Correct.
example. I have to be in the US.
Correct.
That's pretty strong for US only.
So yeah, so I mean, it's a lot of numbers. So yeah, I would agree that I think the story was missed in that it was a lot of people wanted to watch this online. I think it was also, I think a lot of people were very interested in watching it online for being able to do not only the live but the time shifting as well because it was in Rio, it was a little closer to our time zones, and so there were a lot of people watching events during the day.
Right.
You know, productivity in I think every company goes down during things like the Olympics
Right.
because we're all busy watching those. So
For sure.
they were incredible numbers, and what was great about I think this particular year was from an infrastructure standpoint, there were no downtimes, there was no reported outages, there was never any buffering issues where people just got hung and stuck, you know, which are the things that, you know, as you're building up to these things, that's where you spend all of your time, is trying to rigorously test to make sure that you don't leave anybody waiting. And from that standpoint, from an infrastructure standpoint, it was a really successful Olympics.
Since it's more online, I would think the audience would be maybe a little bit different. So were there any events that maybe were more popular than in past years because of the usage patterns?
Yeah, you know, I looked for those type numbers in terms of breakdown of where the most popular were. The one thing I would not say that it was event driven, it was more people driven. So the most popular stream, which was 519,000 concurrent viewers simultaneously, was Michael Phelps' Day 4, which was when he sort of you know became the biggest Olympian of all time.
Right, yeah.
So I would say it was probably more personality driven, and then you could see spikes just through correlation of social media as events were going on that were picking up notice, and seeing social feeds, you would see engagement pick up. So in this case, social media was very much driving those 16 days of viewership.
Interesting. So you mentioned there were no outages. That's pretty remarkable, given there was
Not bad.
2.7 billion views. Why do you think that is? Do you think the pipes are better? Do you think the compression's better?
So it's I would say it's not that it's better, it's matured. You know, live streaming is still ultimately in its infancy, but we're hitting a point where the codecs that we're using, the infrastructures that we're using have all had, you know, multiple times to sort of change over, find things that aren't working well. That's not to say that they always go perfectly, but we're definitely at that sort of point where I'd say we're actually getting ready with things like 360 video and VR video and 4K. We're probably getting ready to jump infrastructure one more time, like that, we're in that precipice. But we're at sort of a very mature age for like solid HD live streaming content right now. And so they've worked out all the bugs that they can, and from their perspective, it's just more reliable now than it has been in
Well,
years
HD is,
past.
that's the bigger feed too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah,
mean,
hands down.
Yep, so yeah, I would say it's finally hit a sort of a maturing that allows for the wider viewership.
Interesting. Do you think we're going to get to, I know there, like a few years ago, there was a bunch of companies that were passing around all kinds of different video compression ideas, and some did actually port over to live. Are you seeing any sort of like Pied Piper on our horizon?
So video compression is an evolving world. This is what I've been doing for 20 years, and it changes sort of in a constant state, and you just sort of have to take a snapshot and look at what's accurate for sort of a 2-year window, and then it moves on. So like I said, we're sort of hitting a point where for the longest time we've had 1080p video, which was sort of the biggest that we were going to try to possibly consume, and we were using H.264 video codecs for that. Very reliable, very matured in the world now. Not practical for 4K content, not necessarily as good for things like VR, where now we may be suddenly doubling, quadrupling the amount of content that we want to stream to a user at the same time.
I didn't see any, but was there VR at the Olympics?
This year, I do not believe there was. If there
Okay.
was, it was probably relatively small demo.
Right, probably more like a 360 than a full VR.
So yes, there is new compression technologies that are certainly going online now. There's new streaming protocols that are going online that will sort of bridge the gap between traditional cable and the OTT markets that are going out there. So that's the kind of stuff we're keeping an eye on, and as technologists, we've been looking at it for a couple of years, and it's starting to hit the market now. So we'll hear more about H.265 or HEVC, which is sort of the codec that may replace H.264 in the long run. We're also hearing a lot from Google about VP9, which is their version of it. So we'll sort of have a codec war for a couple of years where we duke it out to see which one becomes more popular. And then we'll see streaming protocols change as we look for formats that will easily stream to all devices across all infrastructures. So today we're somewhat focused on HLS because while not a standard, it is sort of the broadest reaching. It's sort of the easiest to get to the consumer. But it's looking at being replaced by things like Dash, which is the new protocols that are being looked at that are more standardized and will have industry support to branch out to virtually every device out there.
Do any of those make it cheaper to produce content?
It doesn't make it cheaper to produce, but it will make it cheaper to deliver it to the
Okay.
end user. And so it's that
So
infrastructure side of it.
content creators,
Content creators-
distributors can look forward to having lower costs with better quality?
Yep, that's the plan.
Okay. Take note. Lena, let's talk about marketing. You're doing some really interesting things over at Ignition. Just sort of before we dive into some specific things you're working on, how do you feel video is sort of adapting or changing within marketing? I know it's been huge for a long time. Like, what are some of your overall observations of how it was maybe 2 years ago to how it is now, to like where you think the trends really are with using video as a marketing tool
We've
for
seen-
content, obviously?
Yeah, and because we're a creative agency, we handle analytics and reporting, but I see everything through that creative lens.
Right, and your clients are like Netflix and what, Sony and,
All the movie studios, and and we work a lot with Netflix
so you're
as
tasked with
well.
putting together marketing campaigns and creating the creative around it and
The
then.
strategy, the look and feel, doing our research up front to find out about the audience, and then how we're going to best reach them. And then once a show launches, say on Netflix, or a movie premieres, or a broadcast show premieres, then looking at the audience, and there almost always is a shift, and then we can really dial in what storylines are resonating, what characters are popular, and then we're able to create some really premium content around that for fans to celebrate, especially because we work in a lot of Marvel properties. So we always approach that as we know there's going to be fanboys and fangirls, and we want to give them these showcase pieces to share. So especially with when you have a high affinity level for a property like Marvel Properties, you know that the standards are going to be very high, that, I mean, down to every detail of the costume and, you know, the suits and the weapons and, you know, how they would talk, their mannerisms, that we really have to have all that dialed in. So, of course, that's much more of a challenge with video than it would be with statics. And we've seen a huge shift just over the last several months, that almost all of our content now is video. That I don't think we've had a single brand work with us recently that really wants much in the way of statics, you know, unless maybe some motion graphics, but yeah, there's definitely an element of motion that they want there.
And how has that affected engagement of campaigns overall?
We tend to get good engagement on behind-the-scenes content regardless of whether it's a still, a static, or it's motion, and that goes back to just the peek behind the curtain, and fans eat that up.
Mm-hmm.
But what we really have been playing a lot with is how to make audio visual, really, which we talked a little bit about previously, because we know that the majority of videos are played silently now. And so we've been tasked lately with finding innovative ways. For Daredevil, when Netflix launched Daredevil into different markets, we needed to find a way to make that announcement without just plastering the words on there, or relying at all on the audio. And so we were able to play with some conceptual art, and we actually had the different markets that Daredevil was launching in, Tokyo, Moscow, actually pictures of those cities on Daredevil's back while he's standing looking out over Hell's Kitchen. So a quick read and a way to translate what we wanted to communicate in the first few seconds, and do it in a way that almost made audio-visual, using vibration technology, which we've been looking into lately. And also for Finding Dory, we did a lot of text overlays that were visually stunning on their own, that were pieces of dialogue. So taking captions and really putting a creative spin on them is what we've been tasked to do lately.
Right. I find that, I mean, I watch a lot more videos on Facebook when there's captions, because I'm usually watching somewhere, but I don't want to have my phone blaring.
Sure.
Or
yeah.
my laptop going off. I'm not like alone. I'm in an office or something, so
Yeah.
it really helps. Are you finding that that makes a huge difference? Because someone starts a video and there's no captioning, do they like turn it off quicker than if they had
Yes.
captioning?
Yeah, absolutely. We really don't produce videos that don't have captions anymore. It's a waste. It doesn't make sense to. So that's probably been the biggest shift. And again, looking to make those captions even visually arresting in and of themselves, right at the start has been our. I wouldn't even call it a challenge. It's been fun.
Right.
And it's been fun to play with that.
What, in terms of video marketing, what are you not working on anymore? Like, what have you pretty much figured out is either that it's run its course as far as user interest, or it never really connected with anybody? It's just never really was a thing, and you just, well, we're not doing that anymore. We're going to focus on, like you mentioned, like closed captioning is a big deal. So
Yeah,
so that's like going to be a thing you do.
I would say audio really is the answer to that. You know, we had a film recently that we were putting together a marketing campaign for, still confidential, it hasn't been announced yet, but music was a big driver of the storyline. So the task was how do we get into this narrative without using the music? So needing to make sure that the energy that you saw matched the music you weren't hearing, with, of course, the goal being that you turn your volume on, but even if you didn't, you had a full experience. So that's probably the thing we've moved away from the most.
Mhm. Are there any platforms you find that perform better with video?
It depends on the property. For like a broadcast show, like we work on TNT's new show Animal Kingdom, where there's a lot of second screen consumption, we find that Twitter performs very well for video content. But I would say across the board, hands down, Facebook does, especially because it allows you to target. So on a granular level, and just the ad capabilities, especially Canvas ads. We're working a lot with creating those, and those have been performing really well.
Yeah. Yeah, they perform amazingly for clients that I work with too. It's astounding.
Yeah.
It's content. It's not an ad anymore.
It's a story.
Yeah.
It's not an
Do y'all
ad
know what
anymore.
Canvas ads are on Facebook? Do you want to explain?
Canvas ads are a unit that allows you to explore. So your hero image can open with a video rather, and you can swipe up for more content, you can swipe left to right, and it just allows you to explore the characters and explore the storyline more. So we had some great success using that for Netflix and for TNT recently.
So within one ad unit, you have multiple pieces of content that tend to, it could either be like a carousel slideshow, like if you're a rock band, it could just be a carousel slideshow.
Yeah.
If you're like Finding Dory or one of those things, it
Yeah.
could be a whole exploration of, like, I know you guys did something about how to speak like a whale.
Yeah.
And you had some of the characters from some of the actors who were very famous, who voiced some of the characters.
Yeah.
Come on and teach you how to talk like a whale. And it was
Yes.
all within a Canvas ad, so you end up sitting on that ad for like, what, 3-4 minutes?
Yeah, we had we saw excellent results with that, and I think they were great too because Disney really let us have a lot of fun with just creatively how we use the different units within the Canvas ad and how we told that story. But yeah, Canvas ads have been performing really well.
Right.
That's just one thing I'll throw out. I think that, this has probably been overplayed, but the 15 or 30-second pre-roll ad makes no sense in an on-demand world. It literally makes no sense at all. If you're on minute 20, you're at 29 seconds in and you love what's going on, it just ends. Like it was created, for 1950s linear TV technology, and it literally has no place in today's world beyond the fact that we're just used to it, and we've got, media measurement models built around it. But if you were starting from scratch, you would never ever, create 30-second pre-roll ads to engage people in,
They're
in
interminably
video. And I think
long.
we've reached peak pre-roll. I think pre-rolls will be around forever, 40, 50 years, but the TV inventory is going to go down, and they're just going to be replaced by cooler, more interesting content.
Or 6-second ads.
What is the
Or
ideal?
6-second ads, or
What's-
party hats on Snapchat filters. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
but pretty much anything except a 15, 30-second ad is going to be what you're going to.
Is a
my
5-second
kids- my
pre-roll, is
kids-
that fair? Is there any length of pre-roll that you think is worth the money?
I think, interrupting people and forcing them to watch content is like someone cold calling your phone. It's rude.
And it makes
It's rude. I mean, it's a
need
trade-off
work
you make to get
harder.
free content. I totally get it. But it's just not natural. And like my kids are 11 and 13, and they're just like, I want my ads on the side, or maybe I scroll by the ad, or I click the ad, but like.
They actually call them skip ads.
Yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
it just doesn't make sense to me. And
What do you
so-
think mid-roll and post-roll have in the future? Because mid-roll has been increasingly
I don't
used
know, it
more
just-
often.
I mean, if there's like a TV timeout or something, but like, it doesn't.
Mid-roll
To
to
me,
me
it doesn't
feels
really make a
even
lot of
worse than a
sense, like-
pre-roll. Like a pre-roll I kind of expect, but in mid-roll I'm like, ugh, really? I'm in the middle of watching this.
Yeah, like one of the guys I think is future. There's a guy at Thrillist, and he comes from TV, and he's like he's got a bunch of interesting takes on the world. How GoKits, used to be a van, and now they're like a Manila folder, right? That you send people. But he's like, I don't want to stop my live stream for 2 minutes and have people watch some mid rolls or 30 seconds, have them go elsewhere. What I would like is a little logo in the upper right hand corner. Think soccer, right? This live stream brought to you by GE. There's a little GE thing. I'll talk about GE from time to time. Click a link if you want to learn more about GE. Like, why would we ever stop?
Yeah, I think
don't stop the show.
I think the problem is finding the right partner who understands that, right?
Yeah.
And that's always been the difficult part, is finding that brand that hey, don't use my 30-second $1 million commercial, just throw me in natively into the actual
that's true.
live stream. So I 100% agree with you, and mid-roll is the bane of this generation, but, I definitely think it's been tough to find that brand that says, hey, be happy with the lower third, or be happy with native integrations or custom vignettes after the cool content's done. So
Yeah.
for us,
I mean,
it's been a constant struggle.
We have to include almost in every RFP pre-roll because
Yeah,
it's
they
like.
want it.
They want it. I think mid-roll, the only reason I think mid-roll is interesting is it's a way to get people into content faster.
What's the dropout rate though, do you think?
I don't know.
I wonder.
We haven't done enough of it to even know, but, I mean, any way I can get someone watching my content sooner is better for me. Now, of course, doing what you said, integrating in sponsoring sets or portions of the screen are great, but I think, he's right. It's like convincing brands to get on board with that and convincing them that it's more valuable than a pre-roll. But for them, they can measure a pre-roll. I mean, you can measure
sure.
the viewership as well, but to
Yeah.
them, they think that like, oh, look, my pre-roll got watched, and therefore it was effective. And that's not always hand in hand.
The only platform that I see doing mid-roll in an interesting way, I would think, is Twitch, where they actually give the power of the mid-roll to the actual content creator, where they literally have a button, they can click it and say, hey, run a mid-roll now. Yeah, I'm going to the bathroom. I'm not going to Twitch, but here's a mid-roll, and let's run it right now. So like that's where Twitch, I feel like, has really come in and changed that live stream landscape by offering more tools to these content creators, by creating innovative kind of ad-free products, so to say.
For sure, yeah.
That's giving more kind of, I'd say, substance and user engagement to this community that they've built.
Paula, how is live streaming evolving as a marketing platform?
Well, I was going to say, we talk about what happens at YouNow as participatory media, and the majority of our audience is between 13 and 24, and they have a really different concept of what they expect from a broadcast, and they absolutely want to be part of the broadcast. The media is not just being pushed to them, they are actually part of what's being created. And 70% of the people watching you now are participating in some way. They're gifting, they're commenting, they're broadcasting. I think it's been a new phenomenon that a creator can gain an audience simply by being themselves, by being authentic, candid. I mean, it can be very, very low tech. They're sitting in their bedroom, low cost, and yet, the engagement of the audience when they feel that they have become part of the broadcast, when they've been recognized, when the musician has done a song with their name in it, when the musician has done a song that they requested. I mean, it's almost like you can feel the serotonin, going off in their brains because they become so engaged, and we see a real potential for brands. There have been some creators who bring brands into their broadcasts. YouNow does not have any advertising on the platform itself, but the creators or the media companies who are on YouNow are welcome to bring in sponsors, and brands themselves can become broadcasters. And we also are looking at ways that we can take the gamification, the gifts that the users can participate with, and have a brand, sponsor a Fritos bag that you can give as a gift, and it can be tied to a charity. We think there's a lot of potential for brands to participate in a way that's very organic and authentic to the experience of what's going on at YouNow.
So I know that Refinery 29 and Huffington Post and content creators are getting the live streaming and running their own channels and running their own shows. Are any brands, like straight up brands, doing that yet?
iHeartRadio or
Still a content company.
Coca-Cola doing some.
Coca's
Coca-Cola
dead on,
is
yeah.
exploring working with us.
And are they expecting to make money on that? Because I mean, the amazing thing about live streaming is that you can make money on it just from the users. That's one of the few things users will pay for. Are they looking to make money on it? Are they turning on the tipping? Are they turning on the pay for the emoji? Or is it just simply a marketing expense for them?
Most of the media companies broadcasting on YouNow do not enable the tipping.
Did they feel it's crass, or they just don't think no one's going to do it?
I think that the tipping is very tied to the fan's relationship to the broadcaster, and they love the idea of helping them, of being part of their projects, almost like crowdfunding. And it becomes a little murkier for a media company to be getting a tip. You know, where would that tip be going? It's sort of unclear. So
What percentage of users on the platform actually use the tipping? Is it sort of like the top 3%, or there's like 3% that use it a lot, or 10% that use it a lot, or are there people that do small tips like, you know, $1, $2?
So there is a tip jar, but most of the gifts in the gift area have a price. So the likes have a price. We've just introduced a new, very high-priced gift, which is a confetti box, and it's actually a box that explodes into confetti during the broadcast, and so everybody kind of gets a sort of make it rain, you know, kind of pardon the metaphor.
And what does that cost? Like, is it from a user, like a ballpark? Is that a $5 gift? Is that a $10 gift?
It's actually 13,000 bars. So
Which translates
yeah.
roughly, I know it changes for everything, but roughly.
I think it's like a $50 gift.
Wow.
It's a pretty big.
That's pretty
high ticket.
significant.
But what I was going to say about there is a way that the broadcaster is earning through every transaction, and it's not just through the tip jar, and users are actually given bars, and they, you know, just for spending time on the platform, you get to become part of the game. So
I guess maybe was your question, because I'm interested in this too, like do 5% of your users create 90% of the revenue, right? I mean, it feels like that's the Zynga model, it's the gaming model. I was just curious.
I think there is the phenomenon, as there is on Twitch, of whales, people who are heavy tippers, people. But I also think the broadcasters on YouNow also generate a loyal fan base. So we have a broadcaster named Brent Morgan, who earns over $100,000 a year on YouNow, and it's not all from the high tippers. He has a core group. He broadcasts almost every day on YouNow, and that core group gives to him on a regular basis.
And what does he broadcast about, and what do you think is the profile, like a demo profile of who's watching him?
I think that Brent might have a little older demo.
Older being
than some
30s?
of our Jacob Sartorius, 20s.
20s, okay.
20s. And I think that his songs, his musical ability is a big draw, but the fact that the fans are so involved, he will write a song for somebody, he will call out everybody in the broadcast. He's just extremely adept at making people feel like they're important when they come to his broadcast. That's really cool. Yeah.
That is cool.
So this is sort of a question for the general panel. I read an article recently that it kind of floored me. It said that marketing departments that create branded content are now expected for a certain percentage of their budget to come back to them in revenue. So branded content is not just, isn't this great, people will watch it, isn't this a great marketing spend? It's, whoa, this is actually real content. This could be on an OTT service, this could be on a live stream service, this could be monetized a number of ways. It's what struck me is that it's sort of making a marketing person into a biz dev person to run a P&L, which is not typically what they're expected to do. So I'm wondering, do any of you feel, Mike and Michael and Lena and the ones who are working with content properties and doing branded content, do you feel pressure to make your budget back through any sort of revenue? And people were actually selling advertising against their branded content, which I thought was so meta. You're selling ads against your ad, basically, which is amazing. But if you think about like Red Bull does so much great, like skateboard content and extreme sports content. It doesn't really feel like an ad, even though we very much know it's Red Bull Media House. And so they will sell an ad against that as long as it's not competitive, and that's how they make their money back. So I'm just wondering, what is your guys' experience with the lines being blurred between marketing and monetization with branded content, and how much of that pressure are you feeling from yourselves versus your clients versus your bosses saying, make some of your salary back?
This is your question.
Well, I mean, we've had discussions with, we're content creators, so, you know, we've had discussions with brands around partnering for on content, you know, like co-creating series together.
Right.
Where they can be part owner and fund it, and we can go out and try to sell that, take it to different platforms, window it. That, it's still early on, I think. There's some examples of that happening, but I think it's still exploring where the boundaries are and what that means. I don't have any example of something I can point to that would exactly fall into that sort of category, where a brand is then becoming almost a development person, a creative development person with you, or coming in and funding an idea because they want to become a content owner and an owner of IP. So it's definitely something that we've started exploring a lot to see if we can get some different sorts of projects off the ground, but it's still early on, and we haven't gotten a ton of I don't think that's a whole nother level of a whole nother layer to a marketing group that isn't necessarily a marketing initiative. It's more of a, I don't even know what to, I guess it's part marketing, part development. I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, your model is mostly you're a content creator with advertisers. That's the way the reporter works, that's the way Billboard works. So as you do more entertainment properties, that's kind of how the model flops over. But I know that there's sort of a larger brand feeling within your company at the same time, too. So
Yeah, I think it's still early. I mean, I think, and you probably have dealt with this in
Yeah,
what
I
you're
mean,
doing.
we've had that conversation actually not too long ago about, we have this series with the LA Kings called Black and White. It's like a kind of a play on kind of HBO's kind of Hard Knocks, kind of looking into the preseason of the Kings, and they actually went ahead and filmed it last year without a sponsor. So this is just content, considered very premium content. So the question was, you know, do we go out and find an advertiser for this? And then we kind of flipped that question on the head. It's like, actually, do we take this to Hulu or Netflix and try to get them to buy it versus us selling it to an
the
advertiser?
way we have that Ram show
Right.
on
Hard Knocks. Yeah,
Hard
yeah.
Knocks. It's HBO,
Yeah,
right?
it's HBO show.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do we take that model and actually try to find, find a network or someone, because all the platforms these days are looking for content and they're craving for content. So do we partner with a brand that would then leverage our channels and our YouTube and our Facebook, or do we give it exclusive to a Hulu where we wouldn't get the reach, but we get that premium kind of feel and aspect and perspective to it? So
Right.
that was a conversation that we were having. An example of a brand that does that really well, to me, is National Geographic. Right?
Yeah.
They even have a TV channel now, right? So they started as a brand strong on print, and they've evolved into videos, and now they've evolved into a brand that like you said, has advertisers coming to them and wanting to sponsor their content and stuff. So
Right.
for us, it's kind of that biz dev question of we're always looking at what gives us the best ROI, but what will give us the biggest reach and awareness, and how does that awareness equal into revenue, and then how does that change the formula of what ROI is?
Sure. Lena, do you have any clients that are straight up brands? I know you have a lot of content companies that come to you.
Yeah, well, we work with gaming clients as well, who are, selling downloads and game purchases. For my clients specifically, because they're entertainment, it's really about the earned media. So the ROI is how many press mentions, is their word of mouth, because as an agency, that's how we make our client look good within, say, using Netflix, for example. That producer we're working with he's gonna get the next best show, he's gonna get the next Stranger Things, right? Because he did so well with this campaign and building this buzz and creating great content around the show itself.
I have an example that just popped up. Historically there's been Hallmark. They have the Hallmark channel. I was on Amazon, and you can subscribe for $3 a month to the Hallmark channel through Amazon Prime. I didn't do it, but I thought that was kind of interesting. So I was talking to a company called Chubbies. So I don't know if you know Chubbies. Chubbies
Tights.
makes really tight shorts and swimsuits for men, kind of retro. The idea, I think, is essentially like stuff that 24-year-old and older guys wouldn't wear, and thus it's cool to wear if you're under 24. Anyway, they're now doing 50 million views a month on Facebook. They started out, they're the third most watched apparel brand after Adidas and Nike. And so 50 million views a month on Facebook. They started out, the reason they're doing it is they started out as Facebook as their e-commerce channel, right? So they were basically just selling through Facebook. So they got, they were using Facebook, built up a bunch of fans on Facebook. But now that they have 50 million views, and most of these videos are just kind of like kids having fun in swimsuits. So like, 400-foot long slip and slides, or they had one kind of go viral, which was like real life beer pong, where they set up inner tubes in a lake that looked like beer pong, and then they would swing and try to go into the beer pong ones. And so some of the things they do is they actually look up interesting ideas on YouTube and Facebook. You could use a company like Tubular to do that. And then remake some of the interesting, ideas. But they were approached by some liquor brands. Captain Morgan came to them and said, "Hey, you guys have awesome content. Like, how do we get into your content?" And they're like, "Wow, we're a brand ourselves, but how much money are we talking here?" So Captain Morgan is sponsoring a sweepstakes that they're doing, and now they're just a little company, but they have 4 or 5 people. They make about 2 videos a week, so it's about 100 a year, and it's going real. So their vision is, okay, let's try to break even on this little media group we have going on, and we'll tell our stories, and it'll be great, and it won't cost us anything. And it's hard to find the brand lift. They do see some swimsuit sales. The problem, though, is it becomes a recursive problem, which is, well, if Captain Morgan, if they're making money on their video studio because of Captain Morgan, then at some point, some advertisers got to get ROI out of this, by selling bottles of Captain Morgan, right? So, but I think it shows innovation, and just there's some room in the space for people who get out there. There doesn't have to be only one Red Bull. There could be 100 Red Bulls. There's no like law of Red Bull that prevents other people from doing it. It's just you have to carve out some. And I think they're able to do it because one of the founders was like, "Hey, I want to do this, so I'm going to." Yeah, that's the Chubby
I
story.
think Quest Nutrition is kind of in that same.
Yeah.
In that Quest, I think I met with them about a year or two ago, and they had like a 7-figure marketing budget. And instead of using that budget for marketing, they decided to build their own YouTube space within their office. And you guys should check out their YouTube channel, but it's literally like a crazy influencer channel where they are just taking Quest products and making their own version of Tasty, their own version of BuzzFeed, their own version of esports, and they're just surrounding the
You
whole.
have music videos over there, the official music video of like the Blueberry Bar.
Yeah, they have really, really interesting content, and the way they approach marketing was just that. Let's build our own media company, and let's build great content, and then that's how we're going to draw people in versus forcing people to watch our content.
So, and here's the payoff, right? So a few years ago, we were talking to Pepsi, and the CMO there from this engagement division is now at BuzzFeed, but he said, "Look, this is Google Trends, and here is Pepsi." And it's like flatline, and there's a big spike, and it's flatline, there's a big spike, there's flatline, there's a big spike, and the spike are the viral videos, right? The Uncle Drews or the surprise videos with the race car drivers. He goes, but people engage heavily in this one video, and then it just goes, there's nothing else for them to watch, it goes back down to zero. Here's Red Bull, Google Trends, up, 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 right? Here's Ipsy, Google Trends, up, 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 up. And these brands that are building like a built-in audience that has connection to the brand and cares about it and is going to tune into the next piece of video content or just social media content, right? And they're like, we want to get some percentage of our working budget creating long-term equity and relationships, so it's not just spend $4 million on a bunch of commercials, spend $40 million to get distribution for that $4 million investment, and then repeat 4 times a year. There's got to be like more to marketing than than just constantly buying CPM-based TV ads. So
Yeah.
It's a
they've now
common
got
problem.
so Pepsi now has this thing called the Makers Project, and they have a studio in Brooklyn, and people are coming in, and musicians are filming, and the trick is to, they know that CPM-based ads sells cases of soda, and they have to figure out that this other thing does as well. But it's that idea behind, is my Google Trends up and to the right, or am I just renting eyeballs?
Right. We have a little bit of time left. I want to get back to live streaming. I mean, just for your own knowledge, live streaming, the way we're talking about it, is sort of like Periscope and Facebook Live. It's not just simply streaming something live like a concert. It's actually, it's usually a broadcaster speaking directly into the camera about whatever topic they are an expert at, or just chatting, or whatever they want to do. There's also a text chat that scrolls next to them. And then the monetization we're talking about is generally across the bottom. You can either tip them directly, you can buy emoji to use in your chat, and some of that revenue is shared back with the user. Or you can subscribe, like Twitch makes a lot of money on subscriptions, so I can pay $5 a month to always see this broadcaster and get certain privileges along with that. So it's kind of like being part of a fan club. So that's the kind of live streaming we're talking about. Periscope doesn't really have any of those monetization features yet, neither does Facebook Live. They're just doing it basically for the fun of it for now. But I mean, YouNow and Twitch have definitely shown that there's a pretty serious revenue model behind this, that viewers are willing to open their wallets, unlike they've ever been before with content online, which is amazing because it's such amateur content, but it's compelling. So I want to talk a little bit about that. There's basically three kinds of live streaming I'm seeing emerge. There's like event-based, where we have something going on right now. We have a Coachella, and there's someone on the street, out there on the field doing live streaming and then actually interacting with people as they go. There's the gaming and tournaments that we're seeing a lot on Twitch. I know you guys, Xbox is working a lot on that. And if you think that's not a thing, then look into esports, because people actually fill stadiums watching this stuff. This is the online version of that. And then there's just like native live streamers, like I could be on just talking about something. So I'm just wondering how the panel is incorporating live streaming with any sort of content/marketing initiatives you're doing, what platforms you're on, what seems to be working for you. What's not working for you, what if like, oh gosh, we were on that platform and like it did nothing for us, we're going to stick to Facebook Live, or whatever it is. We only have 15 minutes and I want to get some questions, so maybe just go down the panel, and if anybody is working with it in a significant way, or Paula, as you know, if you have success stories you want to talk about that slam dunk, this works for people and this is why, go for it.
I'll say the one thing about live streaming is I think you can go from zero to an audience in a very short period of time. And that is highly unusual. There's somebody here from Roker Media in the audience, and there was a young woman working in the office of Roker Media who became the YouNow, the face of their YouNow channel, strictly by accident. And she's not a singer, she's not a comedian, but she's a very engaging 20-something young woman who has a message of positivity. Her name is Evie Y on the channel, and she went from accidentally broadcasting for Roker Media to having her own channel, millions of views now. She's making thousands of dollars a month as a broadcaster.
And what does she broadcast? What does she do?
She does a dating show. She does a Fashion Friday show. She walks around New York and takes people with her. She takes people when she goes home to Canada, and she's in her mother's kitchen. I mean, it's really, life with Evie. And this all happened in less than a year. Haley Knox is a young recording artist on S-Curve, touring now, opening for Charlie Puth. Started broadcasting on YouNow when she was 16, and at the end of a year, she'd been signed to a major label, had thousands of fans, and had actually learned how to perform and interact with an audience on YouNow. That was her primary platform. So live streaming, I mean,
It takes years to get that as an artist.
If somebody wanted to establish a brand for themselves as an influencer, gain an audience, the fastest way to do it, I think, would be live streaming. And part of what happens on live streaming, which Evie also did very well, is that the broadcasters connect with each other, they form alliances, they share their audiences, and that's another way that accelerates their, and we also help, promote them, but there's a very organic acceleration that you can achieve.
Andy, how are you taking on Twitch?
So Xbox is a long-term partner with Twitch. 3 years ago, we enabled the ability for someone to stream directly to Twitch directly from their Xbox One. And that's been a very popular feature amongst for broadcasters and just for casual gamers on there as well. Also working with them to make sure that people who are streaming from their Xboxes are very discoverable, so it's easy to find that content. If you're watching Twitch on your Xbox, you probably want to find an Xbox game to watch. So just making sure that those kinds of sort of discoverability issues are sort of well addressed. That's sort of been where things have been to date. We're working, our engineering team is working now on tournament or arena integrations so that individuals can very easily work through places like ESL or MLG or Faceit out of the UK and use their technologies on our platforms so that they can find a match, join that match, other people can watch it, and then they can come back to the app of their choice and see the results. So sort of connecting the dots of being able to not just play the games. To date, all of that sort of the infrastructure part of it has existed outside, where you've had to go to a website, sign up for a match, and then wait for everybody to get online and go play it. Now you can do it all from your controller effectively. So
Right.
that's all coming, in the fall, but it's in preview now and something that folks are starting to talk about and test.
Mike, outside of Coachella, how is live streaming part of your general strategy?
You know what? When I first started, the question that I always got was, should we live stream on Facebook or should we live stream on YouTube? Or Periscope or any other platform. And you know what I always told them is, and I actually don't know of anyone that's actually, YouTube used to pay people for exclusivity. I don't believe Facebook has paid anyone for exclusivity. So my answer to them has always been, why not all of them, right? So, every community, every single platform has their own audience. So there's no harm in renting an extra encoder and encoding to every single platform that you possibly can, whether it be Break.com, whether it be any video platform out there. So for us, really, we always get that question of where should we be live streaming. You should be trying to live stream anywhere and everywhere, right? And every platform has its unique, different preferences. Your Snapchat audience, they literally had to type in your username to find you. Facebook, they might have been served an ad and they might have liked it or they saw their friend liked it. Periscope is also very different. So for us, it's really, last time we did a live stream on the AEG Live Golden Voice patio last week, and we had a red 4K camera, and then we had 3 people with cell phones live streaming all at the same time. And I just thought that was the funniest thing to watch. It's just like a $10,000 camera and like 4 iPhones. And so for us, the live stream question is live stream anywhere and everywhere, and you'll know instantly if it's working or not. And that's the beauty of live stream. So,
Michael, I know it's a
yeah.
big deal with what you're doing right now with your award shows.
Yeah, so we've been working more exclusively with Facebook Live, and we're doing about 1,000 minutes of live streaming a month, doing about 60 to 70 live streams per month. And when we started doing this, it was we really didn't know what was going to work or not work. I think something about the Hollywood Reporter and Billboard as brands, as their, when we talk about influencers and on-camera personalities and people developing relationships with the audience, when I started, I said, well, who's on camera? and they were
What
like,
are you doing in your broadcast, by the way?
What's that?
What are you doing in your broadcast? Because if you're doing 100 broadcasts a month, that's not all award shows.
No, we're doing everything from, we're at the, premiere of this new Netflix show, or we're in our studio interviewing nominees for.
So there's an element of reporting
Emmys.
with most of your broadcasts.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
an element of reporting for sure. But I think what you were saying is that relationship, especially with live stream, because, ideally you want someone to stick around for 30, 60, 90 minutes. With music, it's a little different because, there's that element of like, what you're there for is the music. But when you're just talking to someone face to face, you really do need that element of interactivity, the element of conversation.
Right.
It's not just we're broadcasting something and you're watching it and oh yeah, it's live. It needs to be, you really need to incorporate all those things in. So it's been a learning curve for us over the last few months, and we're slowly figuring out what works and what doesn't. And
Do you have
usually it's
reporters-
the experiential things that work really well. Like the other day we went to Universal and they walked us through their creature shop for the Halloween Horror Nights and showed us how they actually did all the makeup for the zombies and things like, it was like super unusual and interesting, but it was like, it worked really well and people loved it and they stuck around for a long time versus maybe two of our writers talking about something, maybe it isn't as engaging, maybe we need to add elements of interactivity there, ask the audience questions. It's a lot of that learning curve where, a lot of these influencers, that's the de facto, it's just them, so they have no one else to talk to except the audience. And so that's something that we've been, learning from influencers is how to be more, it's sort of an audience development thing, really.
And
I
I
mean, if you're
think it's
bus-
almost
okay.
like a new skill that entertainers need to have. You didn't need to have this skill in the past.
Mm-hmm.
You just had to be good at performing or acting, and now you're being asked to do something else. Social media is part of that, but you have to
personable.
reveal yourself, you have to talk to the other people, you have to ask their opinion. And, we find that people don't want us to just live stream events on You Now. They want to be part of it. We did the Miss Universe, but we were, with our You Now reporter backstage with them as they put on their makeup, and people got to ask questions and participate. But that expectation is there now. And also for the entertainer, there's another expectation. It's a whole other skill.
Yeah.
Is there any questions? We have a few minutes left. Yeah.
For a time, everybody was talking about how Facebook, most things online, needed to be a certain time limit. People wouldn't watch for longer than, or they wouldn't watch if it's too trend. Facebook tells you 10 minutes minimum because it takes a while for people to know that you're live. Is there a sweet spot? Have you guys found in your testing, what time does work best for a live stream before people just kind of tune out and aren't interested? Or does it depend on what the show is that has something to do with it?
I think 10 minutes is a good minimum. Any shorter than that, the thing about live is it's so hard to get a critical mass. Like, it's so hard to get a group together because, people aren't used to tuning in anymore. They're used to watching when they feel like it. So this is like, what's the reason for them to join? And I think you have to sort of be around, socialize it, put it out there, let people know a couple times, at least in the first 10 minutes, just to get that buzz going. Luckily, right now, Facebook alerts your followers. They can turn that off, but ideally, we're not annoying enough to have them turn it off. So hopefully, they keep it on. That helps a lot. But you probably know. I think for your audience, like the people that
Yeah.
come to your channels, it's like they're like rabid fans who are waiting for the next broadcast, and they're also a lot younger than the Hollywood Reporter audience, which is
And the
a little
younger
older, yeah.
demo, our viewers are spending on average, 51 minutes a day on You Now, and it's not unusual for a broadcaster to go for an hour or even 2 hours, but that's because I think the perception is that they're hanging out with their friends as opposed to watching a show. And so it's like being at the mall and hanging out, and time just flies.
And I think
Paula,
that's-
you now
that's an
did a whole
interesting-
survey. You now did a whole survey on this.
Yeah.
With AudioKite.
Right.
And found a bunch of sort of truthisms, I guess,
Yeah.
that would actually work. Is there any of those come to mind to you? I can't think of any off the top of my head. Like sort of rules of the road for how to broadcast.
Yeah, there's a company called AudioKite that we did a music study with, and if you Google that, there's a nice Medium piece with their results of that music study. But
Also,
definitely the idea of hanging out is
Right.
Which
Broker
is
Labs,
interesting
go ahead.
because when brands and publishers think about things, we tend to think about things in terms of formatted things, shows. How do we create a show? How do we cast it? How do we, script it, what's the whole thing? And a lot of times it's not, I think that can work too, but I think you have to just create it knowing the things that we've learned
Well,
in
yeah,
mind, you know?
I would say when it comes to online video, just forget what you know about prime time. Just, like, look at
Right.
the rest of TV, look at the rest of radio, these, talk shows and college game day and, the late night segment shows. Like, prime time's its own little deal. We actually found 17 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes was the sweet spot for views. And that's actually interesting because the views we were looking at were live plus on demand later. So even these longer videos of 15 to 20 minutes got millions and millions and millions more views on demand afterwards. And so that syncs with your at least 10 minutes thing.
I mean, definitely for live streaming, everything you know about what works on YouTube is the complete opposite of what works on live streaming itself. Because of the things Paula said, it's like it's hanging out. So those short little highly edited, 2 to 3 minute, snappy videos, like you don't need any of that. The idea is to really kind of draw out what you're talking about for musicians to talk in between their songs and have a conversation with their audience and then get some ideas for some cover songs and then have a joke. And like that's sort of the idea around it. Is Ron in here, Ron Pruitt? Because he's with Roker. Roker did a whole, Roker Labs did a whole study on this. Is it on rokerlabs.com or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Media, Roker Labs, yeah. We did a study on, we actually did it with Paula to track to track the usage there. But what was the one that you were specifically referring to?
AudioKite, a client of mine, did a study with her about what is working, what users like, what they respond to, what features they like, which features they don't, and some other information about them. That's in a Medium article.
Yeah, if people go to Roker Labs on SlideShare,
Mhm.
it's all there. It's actually an infographic that we did with Paula at AudioKite as well as a study.
So search on SlideShare
SlideShare for Roker Labs.
for Roker Labs and search on Medium for YouNow AudioKite, and you'll see. One more question, anybody? Yeah.
I'm with the Cal State University Entertainment Alliance, and one of the things that we're trying to figure out is how to put these new skills into our curriculum. So we're training the hundreds of thousands of potential content makers that we have. Any suggestions on that, or any examples you have of classes, other universities that are already doing this? What do we do? How do we?
I think it's a school of hard knocks. I mean, everybody's successful on Paula's, I mean, they're
I would
native
say start
broadcasters.
a channel on you now and have your students broadcast on a regular basis.
Yeah. Just getting in front of a camera. I mean, that camera interaction is so hard. Some people are natural, some people are
Right.
awkward.
Have
It
them
just-
do a research
yeah.
report on what works. Give them a whole semester, bust it up into, 5 shows across however many, like 3 or 4 person per show, have them cycle through, and then that's their final. You tell me what works.
And online video is a team sport, right? So they should not go it alone. You talk about collaborating on collaborating on YouTube. There is an amount of collaboration on Facebook, but there are some interesting situations where, Thrillist will show a video made by somebody with 20,000 Facebook fans and just credit them back. And so, it goes on Thrillist. Thrillist gets the views, but they get, so they get learned about. And one of my friends became sort of a YouTube star. He makes videos about how to become a better programmer. His big break was creating content that got put on a programming channel that was bigger than him at the time. He's now eclipsed them. But he made a series for them, and it's like, hey, if you like this, and they said, go check out my buddy's channel. So, like, if you're going to go it alone, just don't even bother, I think. And maybe there's some exceptions that prove the rule. But go out there and find a like-minded community and help them. They'll help you, and I think that's just key.
The interesting school to keep an eye on would be UC Irvine. They just created that new esports kind of arena for their students.
Cool.
So they have like 50 computers in their student center. They're all hooked up, have all the games. They're all ready to stream on
amazing.
Twitch and Facebook and YouTube. So it's gonna be interesting when this fall semester starts.
They get credit for playing games?
It's actually they got rid of all their pool tables and they put in all these
Oh, wow.
state-of-the-art gaming computers,
Wow.
and it's sanctioned by UCI, and they're actually making their own esports team. So to see
Amazing.
what kind of Twitch content comes out of UC Irvine in the next year is going to be really interesting.
Interesting. I think we're done. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks to my panel. This has been really interesting and fun. Thank you, guys.